Okay, so I'm gonna start by letting because these are the guys who really are gonna make this panel run, not me. I'm gonna start by letting them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their organizations, then we're gonna get into the questions. So Eric, why don't we start with you?
Sure. My name is Eric Bozich. I'm the Vice President for Product and Marketing within the Wholesale group at CenturyLink. We just completed a transaction that positions CenturyLink to be truly a local to global provider of voice data, IT services, managed services. Very excited about the opportunity to participate with all of you, and I think we've got a great topic today.
Okay, I have to ask you one question right off the bat. How has the level 3 merger changed your job on a day-to-day basis?
It's crazy. It's crazy. The combination of our two companies is really an exciting proposition for us. A lot of great potential, and we're working hard to make sure that everything goes smoothly, as of course it will. As with all large transactions like that, a lot of complexity, but a lot of exciting things to look forward to.
It's really going to change your wholesale operation, isn't it?
Oh, dramatically.
Right.
Dramatically,
Right.
yes.
Okay. All right, great. Okay, so next we have Mark Daley from Epsilon. So why don't you tell us about your company?
Hello, everybody. My name's Mark. I head up digital strategy at Epsilon. We're a connectivity solutions provider in the wholesale industry for, I guess we call it the cloud ecosystem now, but essentially carriers, mobile operators, and now data centers, IXs, and the IaaS service providers. So we operate internationally. We also have network and premise and offices and that here in the United States, but we're spread all around the globe, and essentially our customers are here.
Okay. All right, and our last speaker, Daniele Mancuso, is all the way from Italy, from Sparkle. Tell us about your company.
Yeah, morning everybody. Daniele Mancuso, Head of Innovation and Engineering, Sparkle. We are a fully owned subsidiary of Team Group with the mission to develop wholesale and enterprise business abroad. Operate a large network, around 500,000 kilometers of fibers all around the world in terrestrial and submarine cables. We are ranking number 7 in our IP transit service, Seaborne,
Okay.
and I think number 9 in the International Voice Exchange. We also operate data centers and cloud services in selected regions in Europe, precisely Greece, Turkey, and Italy.
Okay. Okay, great. So we're going to start off by talking about end-to-end services and what is required to enable end-to-end services and why that's important. And I think when we all talked in advance, it was a general agreement the industry needs to quickly reach a point where there are common APIs enabling end-to-end services, not just amongst service providers, but also for network operators to expose to other players, developers, other people, and such as UCaaS and communications platform as a service companies and app developers. So I wanted to start by asking each of you, and Eric, I'll start at the end with you. Why is this important to your company, and what are the dangers for CenturyLink of doing or failing to do this quickly?
The importance of a truly open environment for end-to-end services, there's just really no way to emphasize enough the importance of that for a global company like CenturyLink. Creating an environment that allows customers to have a better experience, deploying the networks that are going to enable all of the advanced services, all of the digital transformation services that are required is a pretty critical set of capabilities. So from our perspective, the danger in not really participating in that aggressively and participating in groups like this is really risking the future of the business. So we need to be part of that ecosystem. We need to provide leadership in driving the deployment and adoption of the standards that are required. And it really creates an environment where transformation is not just an aspirational kind of thing, but transformation is really in the DNA of the business.
Why is that important, though? I mean, when you talk about what the risks are, from CenturyLink's standpoint, what's at risk if you're not moving quickly enough and being able to expose, your network connectivity at things, for example?
Well, it's keep up or die.
Okay.
You really can't be a part of the digital economy and the transformation that's occurring there without being part of the underlying technology that drives all that and enables it.
So you would see yourself being sort of supplanted by somebody else who was moving faster to offer those end-to-end capabilities?
Absolutely. Okay. The competitive environment is changing rapidly. It's not just telcos competing with telcos. The lines between those different segments of the business, segments of the marketplace, are getting blurred every day.
Okay.
CenturyLink is going to be as much a software company as we are an infrastructure provider if we're going to compete in this new digital economy.
Okay, good point. So Mark, is the same thing true for Epsilon? You guys are in a little bit different position. As you said, you're sort of that puzzle piece in the middle for a lot of folks, but is the same thing true for you?
Yeah, which makes it critical for us. So being wholesale as well, the definition of wholesale really changed for us. Maybe we realized it probably 3 years ago when traditionally we would interwork and sell and buy from carriers and mobile operators. But that's changed now. The growth segments for us are CPaaS guys and guys in the cloud stack.
Like the Twilios and those folks?
Yeah, Twilio is a big customer of ours.
Okay.
And those, in terms of demographic and segmentation, they are by far the fastest growth sectors that we have, but they buy differently. It's on demand, it's high quality, it's control. What these guys do very well as well is they take a function and they expose it to somebody else. And I was at a fantastic Twilio event, I think a couple of months ago called Signal, and they launched something called Twilio Visual, which is a visual service creation environment. And I'm an old IN person building intelligent network platforms many years ago, and I thought, oh my Lord, we did that 15 years ago, but their genius is exposing it to others. And
okay.
So as a direct result, they demand that from us.
Okay.
And so for us, if we don't meet that expectation, they move on to somebody who does. And so it's absolutely critical. At the same time, if you think from a horizontal perspective, you can hear from the conversations here that our biggest customers are also now looking at how do they serve their customers in a very quick, fast, and efficient manner. And from our perspective, the third kind of major point is internal efficiency. And when myself and my colleague over there, when we sat down and wrote this kind of transformation and e-commerce at the time strategy, we weren't really thinking about the internal cost effectiveness and automation benefits for our own kind of Oracle eat your own dog food perspective. But I mean, it's been awesome to realize that in the company, but it's also been really hard work, that internal transformation. So we talk a lot about the stuff here about our customers, but there are inherent benefits that you will get internally as well.
Okay, I want to get back to the internal piece of it, but first I want to give Daniele a chance to weigh in on this. Why is this important to Sparkle to get this sort of end-to-end common API enabling end-to-end connectivity?
Well, let's look at the market. The digital economy is running fast, much faster than our internal business processes. Enterprises are losing the barriers of their original region of actions. And therefore, they are looking always to connect with the different services providers and cloud providers all around the world. So let's say the comfort zone on which a service provider that has a market leadership in a specific region is going to fall down quickly. On the other hand, OTTs are already the owners of the data centers from which they are providing to all the world applications that they produce or other content provider produce. They are having the visibility of the edge of the end customers through the internet, and they are building their own infrastructures to interconnect the data centers. We always see announcements every day of a new partnership between OTTs or between OTTs and telcos in new submarine cables with the design capacity that are amazing. 5G introduction in few years is also going to solve the problem of the last mile that is not suitable enough to get to dramatic capacity in mobility. So if you put all these things together, I mean, it looks like a nightmare, basically. It looks like we are gonna losing a severe portion of the markets. So I agree with Eric. We need to move fast because the alternative is to be wiped out.
Okay. So in your scenario, then 5G becomes that last access piece which enables an OTT to completely bypass your network, potentially.
It might be. It might be if we don't react fast.
Okay.
We have an opportunity to work with the mobile guys to use 5G to leverage our requirements for end-to-end connectivity, but we may lose it if we are not fast enough.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so where are we now in achieving this goal? How easy is this to do today? Okay, Mark, I'll start with you. You're smiling and nodding. Is that good news?
It's not easy.
Okay.
So I guess companies like ourselves, the DNA of people in our organization come from building our own application layers. And so we started that fairly early. I heard yesterday the term secret sauce. We use that. So we built our own kind of orchestration / message bus platform, because one of the challenges we had is we have a globally distributed, let's say, traditional architectures from equipment and even connectivity. And we couldn't really throw that out and bring something in new. Is very difficult. So for us, it was, okay, how do we wrote a strategy, or I wrote a strategy, again, with my colleague, but we just called it the Network API, which is basically, let's look at all of our functions as individual functions, and what can we take out of these boxes, whether they have an API or not, and present them up as a kind of programmable resource.
So you create like an abstraction layer?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we start the other end and take the agile approach of, what does my customer want to do? What are they trying to solve? And basically bring it all together and then present that solution out. So that's taken a lot of work. We had a development team, but it was internal development, OSS and BSS. So changing that to start to build applications and presentations out to the customer basement, we had to bring in new people. And we had to change the way that we did business internally as well. So it's a difficult journey.
Were there any industry standards that you brought in to guide that process, or you're doing this completely on your own?
Well, what we actually did is we hired people from other elements, other industry segments, people who had developed e-commerce platforms, say for, I won't name them, but large-scale transaction companies online. And so people who'd built something based on use cases, and I want to do something in 1 or 2 clicks. Because we had the same, the cool thing for us is we want to build service threading, 1 click to deliver for products, which solves a certain problem. And so taking expertise from people who've done that for years didn't necessarily mean we drew from the telco organizations. And really, at the time, there were no standards.
So basically, you can do this within your own network, but what happens if you try to go places where you don't have a network?
Yeah, so for us, it's partnering.
Right.
And so the federated approach for us is a key, hence why we're here. Our strategy people are here, and our global head of engineering and development, because we see it's a must, it's inevitable. I spoke to a few guys from Orange about 4 years ago at a MEF event, and they were saying one day we won't buy from people who don't interwork with us in the standardized approach from MEF, and a little bell goes off, oh, we better get a little bit more involved, because that's our client base, our customer base. So it's a key for us. I spent 10 years in the roaming industry developing standards there, and they did it very well. And their model is not dissimilar to what we're trying to do now at MEF.
Okay.
They made it work. And I think from our perspective, the whole ecosystem needs to get involved, particularly the manufacturers as well, because they made roaming happen as well.
Okay.
When you think how complex that was.
Yeah, true. The roaming, we take it for granted now, but it was a very complex process.
It didn't exist.
Right.
You couldn't take your phone overseas.
Right, good point.
And you think of the ecosystem stack, just simple things like getting a manufacturer to have a switch data roaming on or off, which was a big need. I mean, driving that through was difficult, but they have a very good collaborative approach, the roaming industry. They have 3 times a year, huge events, and which is sliced. And I think one thing we're missing is having a slice commercial people to sit down and start to negotiate into working and stuff like that. And I think there's some excellent models that we could do to bring into the MEF environment to really give it a really good push.
Okay, Daniele, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. Our experience is quite similar to what Mark was describing. We also started a network transformation project introducing a layer or 2 layers of orchestration, actually. One that is dedicated to orchestrate network resources, another one that is dedicated to orchestrate services. But still, this is working on a portion of network, well-defined network within Sparkle boundaries.
Okay.
Whenever we try to approach the partnership, then the nightmare begins, because of course you need to make a system integration process to have the API that you expose to interoperate to the API that your partner exposes.
And they're each done totally differently.
Right.
Okay.
And this is a repetitive project.
Right.
This is adding complexity.
Right.
This is heavily on the OpEx budget. And this is having a time to market that we cannot sustain anymore for the reasons I said before.
Okay. So let me, and it may be unfair to hit you with this, Eric, but if everybody's developing their own API, because you have to, how do you get beyond that to where you come up with more common elements? What's your perspective on that?
Well, that's what's so great about the MEF, and it's a place where all of the different participants in this ecosystem can come together and establish a uniform approach to creating the type of virtualized, extensible network infrastructure that's really going to drive this digital economy and digital transformation that customers are experiencing. CenturyLink is invested in a big way in transformation. We have decades, literally, of infrastructure that was built around the way services are ordered and provisioned that are out, sort of in the wild today. But that needs to really be improved in order to keep pace with the rate of change that our customers are experiencing.
Okay, so today the situation is if you want to federate, you do it 1-to-1, right? Okay. When do you see, or now, when do you see that changing? How quickly do you think the mass processes or the other things at work here can improve? And how quickly do you think it? I mean, everyone wants it right away, right? So how quickly can this happen?
Well, I'll start.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we are already here demonstrating today the interconnection among 3 operators based on MEF standards API.
Okay.
So that's a great step forward. It was requiring, I would say, quite a year of discussion.
Are you referencing the thing that Josh talked about earlier with AT&T, Colt, and Orange, or was this a different one?
We are doing with Tata Communication,
Okay.
PCCW Global,
Okay.
and DCI Telecom as service orchestrator.
And is that the proof of concept that's
Yeah.
here? Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, it's a part of MEFNet project. So that, in my opinion, is a great way to approach the problem, because it's not just to sit around the table and to discuss about which field, which kind of code is going to be, but you need to test it. And you need to test it in different environments because, as we said, each one of us has a different experience. Each one of us has a different network that might be a combination of different acquisitions made along the years, where there is not an homogeneous environment
Right.
in the
I think
bottom
Eric
part.
would know a lot about that.
He can speak quite a day, I believe.
Yes.
So the place we are now is where we start to see the light, meaning that there is a common consensus about the work that MEF is doing and that us, as service provider working with MEF, are doing to accelerate the process of transformation. There are
So I want to ask you, what you're demonstrating here,
Yeah.
what did it take to bring that together? What were some of the challenges you overcame in order to execute that?
Well, we need to separate the experience we do in lab or, let's say, partially production network to what is real in live network. What is being demonstrated here put together 3 different networks spanning from Southeast Asia to Europe to the US, but most of the software around it is realized in a lab environment.
Okay.
So we are still, let's say, in a, I don't want to use the term green field, but we are in a kind of brownfield environment on which the software is isolated from the rest of the OSS, BSS chain.
Okay.
And most important, the operational folks are yet not involved in the stuff. Because one of the main challenges is this. We are basically taking down the ground to decades of processes of operating and maintaining a network or a collection of networks.
Okay.
That's the real issue. At least that is what we are experiencing in our case.
Okay, that's a good segue to what we want to talk about next, which is the notion of involving every aspect of the business in this. This isn't just about the network. It isn't just about the operations. It's about business processes. It's about skill sets and training. And how do you begin to tackle that, Eric, on it? It's a big topic, I know. But
It's a really big topic, and you kind of have to segregate the technical aspects of developing standards, adopting those standards, working with partners to deploy them, and creating an environment that technically functions. But there's a whole set of business issues that go along with that. And it really relates to what are those business relationships going to look like in a world with peered layer 2 networks and end-to-end service provisioning capabilities and real-time agile configurable controls. What is the business model that supports that?
Right.
Because again, we're all dealing with our own self-interest in this in some respect, and it's going to be a difficult challenge to really overcome the, what are the business relationships going to look like? How will those be defined? How will those be instantiated in agreements? And how will that then relate to the infrastructure that's actually being provided to create the service?
And I also wonder in this context, everybody wants to own the customer, right? That's really one of your end goals, is to own the customer. But to some extent, when you start offering your customer on-demand services that traverse other people's networks, you're also sort of sharing that ownership a little bit, right? I mean, there's got to be a trust factor there that's much higher, because if the service isn't working, you're the one who's going to get the black eye with your customer, correct?
That's right.
So this is the kind of business process you're looking for that enables that.
That's right. I mean, and it's more than a business process. It's a business model, a business relationship. Right. How that all becomes part of this environment is one of the large challenges in really figuring out what the timetable is going to be.
Okay, Mark. So how do you figure that out? How do you guys work together to try to do that?
Collaborative forums, firstly, but we have to get our own house right first. I'll start with that. Your original question was the challenges internally, and it's kind of like 4 levels for us. It was obviously the network elements had to be reassessed as to the digitization of those. The software overlay that we had in place, the process overlay of that, and then the people overlay. All 4 elements need to be viewed in a single kind of vertical, but at the same time analyzed and changed and evolved as individuals, and that takes a lot of work, a lot of kind of almost internal SI consulting type approach, and you have to have a holistic view. We took a holistic view across our entire organization, and just the question of, in terms of programmability over somebody's network, they're going to need to know that the trust that we have in terms of, I don't know, our customer value, that single value is firstly correct. Secondly, can be hidden, and we're not changing it all the time and modifying it and creating problems for our up or downstream partners. So it's a lot of challenges there. In terms of how we interact with each other, and from my perspective, and these guys are doing it already, is it is collaborative planning and then play. It's lab play, working out the kinks.
Execution, basically.
Yeah, it's inevitable that there are always going to be challenges thrown up. So you're better off doing that in a live lab environment using live network, but obviously partitioning it for this kind of play area.
The way Daniele described.
Perfect.
So Daniele, I want to ask you, since you're engaged with this, how do things like the LSO APIs and the work that MEF is doing, how does that enable you to do both the demonstration here and potentially go forward?
Well, let's say that MEF 3.0 is, together with the division of the third network, the LSO introduction, looks like a lighthouse during the sea in storm. It's a kind of guideline that we should start following in order, first of all, to make peace with ourselves. Because again, as I said, the introduction of this new model is going to creating a vertical disruption within the company.
Okay. So you agree with Mark that first you get your own house in order?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I give you an example, just to say what's today the business process. The business process is based on quarterly forecast about sales funnels popping here and there in the regions, marketing analysis, network planning, network upgrades where it's considered needed. Tomorrow, if we succeed, and we must succeed on doing this, all this kind of process is going to be disrupted completely. We will have circuits popping up and popping down without any flag that is advising when a customer is coming on board or not. And we are already seeing, following the certification that we have got beginning of this year about the 100 giga, that there are several potential customers that are interested. Now imagine in an on-demand, in complete interconnect scenarios when 100 giga Ethernet services are popping up and down in a network spanning from Asia to US. What is going on? It's a complete mess. You need to have a bunch of capacity always ready to be provisioned because the customer is not waiting anymore for the 3 months that you gave before.
Right.
Customer wants the circuit yesterday evening.
Right.
And want to cancel it 6 o'clock this morning. So you are already late by definition. And having the need to do this mean that for sure you need to come to terms with the equipment vendors, otherwise your business case will never come back. You cannot buy and pay in advance this capacity. You need to move procurement towards a kind of license-driven procurement. But it means that our financial will have to write in their asset books not anymore pieces of iron, but licenses. So again, it's a complete disruption within the company. And at the end of the day, the operational guys will have to deal with interconnections that are not anymore physical in an ODF, but within a server running 2 different network functions.
Yeah, that does. You just described total disruption. So Eric, from CenturyLink's standpoint, I'm going to come back to the MEF question. How are you guys using MEF standards and LSO APIs, or are you, in order to get to sort some of this out?
Absolutely. I think the key to successfully navigating through all of the technical and business challenges that are created is having a group like the MEF help create the forum for those conversations and discussions. So from a CenturyLink perspective, we see a lot of value in the MEF 3.0 announcement, and that's going to be a real key, I think, to help us as we collaborate with the other partner organizations and member organizations, and as we develop our own implementations based on those standards.
Okay, great. All right, so what are the other pieces of the puzzle that need to be put in place here? What else do you need? You're getting some, as you said, you're getting some collaborative work with the MEF. We talked about LSO APIs. What are the other things that you really need in order to make this work? And maybe when we start talking about people and processes, well, let's set the processes aside for a second. Let's just talk about the people. What are the issues you need? What are the things you need in order to enable your people to succeed?
Who's first?
Pardon?
Who's first?
You go for it.
Okay. So, for sure, we need to transform skills within the company. We need to start to blur barriers between the traditional IT skills and the network specialist. We already started to introduce a new figure, a new role that is called the network software engineer. And this guy is basically responsible not only to plan and design network architectures and interconnection, but is also having strong skills in virtualization, meaning IT, storage, and network virtualization, moving traditionally towards the infrastructural part of IT. On the other hand, IT must be more focused and aware of what is going on in these forums, and that's why we are already taking our IT colleagues and bringing them here, because it's not anymore a matter of certification of services, but it's a matter of redesigning the OSS, BSS chain of the future to understand where the concept of LSO will fit within the IT transformation that all of us, I'm sure, we are already going through. So skills, organizational changes, those are fundamental elements that we need to achieve in order to be ready to manage the network of the future.
Okay, so Eric, I know Amir Hussain, when you took over CTO at CenturyLink, made a lot of changes about how organizations were set up, and it's continued to evolve. How are those things playing out at CenturyLink to help you, and what are the other things you need in terms of skills?
Well, I think just to kind of build on the comment that you made around sort of a retrofit of the skill sets that we have within the business, I think there's a real important marriage between domain expertise with our traditional kind of network stack, network services, our approach to deploying those, managing those, operating those, with software development that is tied into sort of this agile vision of the future, linking those two skill sets together, creating teams that can take the concepts and ideas and implement them in essentially a new stack, because you really can't retrofit what we have. You need to sort of start with a new approach, a fresh approach to deploying virtualized infrastructure and the services that go along with it.
So do that new stack, does that sit alongside the old stacks, or are you breaking down the silos and creating a bigger a DevOps group that encompasses everything?
You know, I think you start in a sandbox, and then you take the successful deployments that you create in that environment, and you move them into the production environment.
And are you guys, you've been doing this now for a couple of years. Where are you along that progression, CenturyLink?
We're moving as rapidly as we can, and from my perspective, the progress really can't go fast enough.
Okay.
But there is a commitment to transformational kind of activities. That's where a lot of our executive leadership is focused, and a lot of the incremental investments that we're making are focused on those kinds of projects.
Okay, so I have to ask you, again, this may not be entirely fair, but when you're working hard at this transformational process, and then you take on a giant merger, and you have to work at integration and transformation, is that just, are you finding that just complicates things further, or to some extent does it create change that just gives you an opportunity for the transformation to pick up the pace, maybe?
It's much more of an opportunity, because bringing two large, complex organizations together is a huge event that creates an environment of pretty dramatic change. Mm-hmm. That's actually a great opportunity to start implementing the types of services that we're talking about.
Okay.
Can I?
Sure.
There's a kind of topic that we don't talk about a lot, and I don't really know what to call it, but it's like attitude transformation as well.
I think they call it culture change.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's how we do business with each other as well. So it's kind of like north, south, east, west.
Okay.
It's like internally in my organization with our procurement team. So if we're now going to have a on-demand relationship with a preferred partner, I guess it's basically it, is how do our procurement people get involved in that decision-making, feel involved, and also get to make decisions based on different criteria now. And a good example as well is with a partner that we're federating with. When I sat down with their kind of global head of business development initially and said, let's do this, his first question to me was, so what's your commitment? And I went, okay, so we'll give you development time, and you'll now be our only supplier partner in a region. So monopoly commitment, is that okay? Yeah. It's like, it was a different mentality that he had not been exposed to.
Interesting.
And so driving that cultural attitude change into how we are going to interwork with each other and do business with each other. And I'm very old, I come from the days I used to work for an Australian large telco, and we were involved in a number of, let's call them federations in the past, and those organizations were really just commercial federations. If you had the VPN service that we had in Australia it was different to the one in the US with our partner in the US, and there was no interworking, and that's one of the, I think, big reasons that there was no longevity in those relationships. But we can do that now, and that's why I'm very excited about this.
Okay. All right, so that becomes a real opportunity to work together in new ways that pay off for everybody, right?
And this is only good for our customers. I mean, to give these guys the ability to roll their sleeves up and start to create and develop their own service layers over the top of ours is just brilliant. And there's a change. We don't directly serve the enterprise market, but in Western Europe, banks, companies like Santander bought Progeban, an ICT company, a couple of years ago, because it's not just us saying innovation is back.
Right.
They're seeing it. They're going, innovation is back. We can take control of this. They don't want to build their own networks necessarily, but they can get control of their application layers again. And I think that's good for all of us.
Okay, we just have a couple minutes left, and I'm not going to be the person who makes Stan run late. So just real quickly, maybe each of you, like 30 seconds, how do you think you're going to deal with your customers differently in this new world, this new environment? What's going to be different about that relationship? And Eric, I'll start with you.
Well, I think it's all about the customer, the customer experience, that truly agile, end-to-end service environment can provide is really the key to the success of the whole ecosystem. So from a CenturyLink perspective, that's the motivation to participate and be part of all of this is really to be in a position to create that digitally transformed customer experience.
Okay. And essentially give your customer more control? Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. All right. Mark.
Exactly the same. And we're very much going to be led, I think, from that kind of agile mentality. I want to. And basically that's the drivers from our customers. So it's basically somebody saying to us, I want to do this, as well as trying to second guess that. But from our perspective, it's definitely customer-led, everything that we're doing, but we also get internal benefits as well.
Okay. All right. Daniele, you're going to get the last word here.
I will use a metaphor. When you switch on the light, for sure you don't think to the network, to the way electrons are being transported all around from the transformers. So our mission is to give our customers the same kind of approach. We want to reduce complexity. We want to make the infrastructure as invisible as possible. Because basically the customer doesn't care what there is beyond his CPE or modem. The customer wants to be connected on the other side. So we want to reduce complexity. We don't want to give visibility about our own nightmares. We want to give more control and assured quality.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. And
it's a good point, actually. There are a couple of other demographics that are very excited about what we're doing. I don't think any of them are represented here, but like the SIs, they think this is awesome. The cloud guys, IaaS, I mean, I see in the future that actually will be even a little bit more separated because they will have the connectivity app stack in their stack.
Yeah, good point.
And we will be a means to an end, but from their perspective, they'll have the customer and they'll be actually delivering the service. It's just a personal view, but I think that's inevitable.
And it still maintains the value of the service that you're delivering.
Yeah.
Okay, terrific. All right, guys, and we're going to wind up right on time. So please join me in thanking my panelists.